Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. This is my brand new guitar. It is a Schecter Nick Johnston signature model. It's the Diamond series, so it's made in Indonesia. I bought this guitar at the weekend. It cost me £772 from Peach Guitars in Colchester in the UK. I actually went shopping for the new Paul's SE guitar. I played one, the blue one, the aqua one I should say. It was really quite nice guitar, super light, played very nicely. But I wasn't overly blown away with the neck pickup, which was kind of weird. It sounded a little bit muddy to me, which might have been my imagination, but wasn't 100% convinced on it. And as I went through the saloon doors at Peach's, I went up the stairs, and this was sitting there, hanging on the wall like that, and it just caught my eye immediately. Of course, I knew a little bit about the guitar from NAMM 2019. But hadn't really heard much about it since. I mean, it's been completely undersold in my opinion. I think Schecter need to get the old purse strings open and get a bit more advertising going, because this is a cracking guitar. So I'm going to give you a few quick sound samples. Start with the neck pickup and everything open. Neck and middle pickup. Middle pickup on its own. Neck and bridge pickup. And finally just the bridge. So let's talk a little bit about the guitar's features, the things that appealed to me the most when I saw it and when I first played it. Starting up at the top of the headstock, we've got locking Schecter tuners, which for this kind of money I think is fantastic to have that. Standard on the signature model. They are a little bit bulky to my mind, but they're not heavy at all. They don't stick out, they don't get in the way. The posts, it's hard to tell whether they're staggered. I don't think they are, no. The posts are all the same height throughout. They've got Schecter branded locking wheels on the back there. The wheels on the back of the tuners are really kind of chunky, which is great. You can get a really good grip on them, unlike the dispersal tuners on one of my guitars, which are very thin, which means when you try and turn them, even to hand tight like you're supposed to, it really digs into your fingers. And if you're trying to change the strings quickly, they can also be really tough to undo because of that. But I don't think that's going to be a problem here. Show you a close-up of this. We've got an engraved logo, Nick Johnston's. I don't really know what the hell that is, to be honest. That looks like a skull in a spaceman's helmet, so I'm guessing that's what it's going to be. Skull in a spaceman's helmet, and his signature is engraved in there as well. That's really cool to see that, and not just be screen printed on like a lot of cheaper models might be. That's actually been either CNC'd or lasered into the back of the headstock, which is cool. And then you've got the crafted in Indonesia silk screen print, serial number, etc. And they've this is just silly. I suppose it's got something to do with import and all that crap, but it's got a little wheelie bin there. Do not throw this guitar away, like you're ever gonna. Onto the front of the headstock. So we've got, as I say, the locking tuners this end. They lock through the holes at the posts, much the same as the Spurzels or the shallow locking tuners do. And we've got the string tree here, followed by a silkscreen logo and Diamond series. So I suppose one of the main really appealing features about the guitar is the fact that it has a roasted maple neck, which is just phenomenal for a guitar at this price point. Absolutely crazy. The finish is so smooth, it's like a satin finish. The neck itself is super smooth, really playable, really super comfortable. And fingerboard, oh my god, it's solid ebony fingerboard, which is just an absolutely beautiful dark piece of ebony. Not entirely 100% jet black. You can see a few tiny little brown stripes emerging in there, but it's a really thick chunk of ebony, which is cool. For example, on the new Fender Player Series Stratocasters, the Power Ferro that they use is a really thin piece for the fingerboard. It's really super thin, probably half as thick as this one. In terms of the neck itself, the fingerboard has been rolled over, no sharp edges to speak of. The fretwork is absolutely exceptional. Schecter have really taken the time, or whoever the hell the Indonesian factory is, have really taken the time to fill the slots in so that you get a super smooth, uniform finish. Each of the ends of the frets has been rounded really nicely. No sharp edges whatsoever to speak of, which is great. One of the most impressive things that I think really drew me to this guitar over the SE, the Paul's guitar, is the fact that this nut has been cut so perfectly. It's phenomenal. No doubt it's done by machines, CNC machines, to cut the nut slot. The nut slot itself doesn't go all the way to the outside, so you've got a recess where they've cut the nut slot in, and then solid ebony on the outer edge. So the nut itself is completely inlaid inside of the ebony. The setup, brilliant. The nut is cut so perfectly that I didn't have to do a single thing to it, which is quite unusual for a guitar of this kind of money, this kind of price point, to have such a beautifully cut nut. So really impressed with that. Came with 10 to 46 Ernie balls on a standard. Since changed these for D'Addario 10 gauge strings because one of the Ernie balls broke on me, just the E string. But I think that was more a question of it had been played a little bit in the shop before I got there, and it got a bit old and tired. Dot inlay markers all the way down the edge of the fingerboard on the usual frets. These seem to be fairly central. If Henning Pauley's watching this, sorry mate, they're not 100% central. I know that bugs you. On the face of the fingerboard, we've got brass inlays. These are really classy. This is such a cool touch. I absolutely love this. You've got brass circles inlaid into the ebony, and it goes, I'm guessing, again, this is done on a CNC, they would have cut a little channel, little circle, inlaid the brass, filled that with super glue or epoxy or something, and then sanded that completely smooth. So you can just about see a dark outline where that's actually been done in the factory. Obviously they're in standard positions, nothing amazing about that. If I'm going to be super critical about this, I will say that the frets themselves were polished beautifully on the very top, but the sides of the frets are still a little bit scratchy, which to me speaks volumes. Obviously they've done an amazing job leveling the frets, no buzzing, no issues whatsoever there, but they had to save a little bit of time somewhere. So I'll go in at some point and just polish the hell out of that to make them as shiny as I think they should be. Not that that affects playability at all, so just me being fussy, I guess. As we get down towards the body, we've got a spoke wheel truss rod, which is just a brilliant touch. If we get a nice close-up of the inside here, you'll see, hopefully, that where the ebony meets the maple fingerboard, there is a little bit of roughness going on here. They didn't do an amazing job of routing that particular pocket out, or maybe the neck was routed before they glued the fingerboard on. I couldn't tell you, I wasn't there. Duh. Scratch plate fits around the neck pocket and everything else absolutely perfectly, so it's lined up brilliantly. No dodgy fitting. 3 single coil pickups, and let's have a listen to those. We'll change over to why not? I'm a creature of habit. Change over to Mark V profile from Tone Junkie. Neck pickup. Neck and middle pickups together. Just the middle pickup on its own. Middle and bridge pickup. And the bridge on its own. When asked the question, does it gent? I imagine it probably does. Unfortunately, I don't. I am the crappiest metal player on the planet. So I'll give you a few power chords, and that's about as good as it's going to get, I'm afraid, guys. Okay. Neck pickup, power chords. Neck and middle power chords. Middle pickup on its own. Neck and bridge. And the bridge pickup. Okay, cool. So down to the controls, we've got ourselves a master volume and a master tone control, which does what it says on the tin. Nothing to report there other than the pots themselves are Korean. I had a look inside, they're Korean potentiometers, which are really smooth, so nothing wrong with that whatsoever. We've got an 11-hole pickguard. I had been curious as to whether or not an American a Stratocaster pickguard would fit here, a replacement one. I don't think it's going to fit without some serious modification, unfortunately. The neck pocket on a standard Stratocaster is much narrower than this one, so around here you have to do a bit of modification, and it didn't really seem to line up particularly well with the bridge either. So there's definitely going to be, if you wanted to change out for different pickups, put in a humbucker or something like that, I'm afraid you're out of luck as well, because inside here in the cavities we've got single routing, although this one is a little wider. It's not really big enough to accommodate a full-size humbucking pickup, and the cavity inside of here is also smaller than you would find on an American Strat, so you're not going to get a standard Strat configuration in there without doing some modifications, routing it out, which no, it's not worth it. Don't go there. You're going to destroy the guitar's value. Unless you really know what you're doing and you have no plans of selling the guitar, then just steer clear of doing that kind of thing. Alrighty, so where are we? Bridge. I was amazed about this bridge. I really was. I played it in the shop, had the wiggle bar in just for some fun. It's got a grub screw there to lock it in place and to give it tension. It's a pushing arm, and it's solid, so none of that hollowed out crap that you find on some budget guitars. This one's solid through and through, quite a weighty bit of metal. Goes in there with absolute authority. No planing whatsoever, so it's really fun to use. You can get a little bit of a gargle out of it, but it's not really set up for that. It's a bit too flat to the body. It also moves and stays where you put it, which is great, really good. Well impressed with that. 2-pin trem, modern style, really functional. Guitar stays in tune incredibly well after you've been messing about with it. You've got 6, what would you call these? 6 modern saddles, I guess. The one thing that probably lets this down, and one thing I might change in the future, is that the grub screws here are probably too long, certainly for the central, the D and the G strings. So you end up with a little bit of an abrasive edge there. If you were really going at it, you might end up hurting yourself. Might end up cutting up your palm. Setup out of the box was great, although I have since been through it and lowered the action and put in some Big Ben's nut sauce on saddles, the nut and underneath the string tree, I just do that with every guitar with a tremolo because it just makes everything run really smoothly. Okay, so around the back. Man, I tell you what, I took the back plate off. It's a black Strat-esque back plate, 6-hole screws with a funny little groove there to fit the strings through. I always take them off on every Strat type guitar I've had because it just stops you getting access to the strings if you need to change the strings quickly. Trying to fiddle around forcing them through that gap is just absolute crap. I mean, seriously, if you're going to make a guitar that's functional and modern like this, do something about it, because that's just something that was crap in the 50s when they first brought the Strat out, and they never made it any better. Get it right, for fuck's sake. So, what I was incredibly impressed about back here is this bridge block is absolutely huge. It's really thick, substantial bit of metal. I don't know what it is. I don't think it's brass. It certainly doesn't look or feel like brass to me. It appears to have some kind of coating on it. Maybe I could scratch through that coating at some point to see what type of metal it is, but I don't really care, to be honest. It works brilliantly, works really well. So that's been probably one of the biggest surprises about the guitar, because so many of these budget guitars, including the Ibanez AZs, have such thin, cheap, nasty bridge blocks in them. Of course, I'm talking about the lesser expensive AZs, not the high-end ones, which have a proper block. The cheaper ones have a really small, thin block, which is no good. I just don't like that at all. Soldering's really good. Good quality soldering. You can always tell good quality soldering when they haven't needed to use a lot of solder, and the solder itself is really shiny. So it's gone on hot, and it's set. It's made really good contact. The neck plate's kind of interesting too. We've got a Schecter. It says Schecter Guitar Research, Sun Valley, California, USA. Of course, this is an Indonesian guitar, so I don't know how I feel about that. It's not exactly, it's certainly not a game changer, but I think that they should probably come up with something that doesn't pretend that the guitar is made in California, which makes me a massive hypocrite considering what I've just done to my Telecaster that was made in Mexico. However, we do have a bevel here on the heel joint, which means the access is much better, much more comfortable when you're playing up on those higher notes, which is kind of cool. No access issues whatsoever to report, so that's brilliant. Strap buttons. These are pretty good. I will swap these out for locking strap buttons, as I do with all my guitars, just because, you know, you've got to look after your investment at the end of the day. They're pretty good. They've got quite a large dome to them, which means that they are going to grab hold of your strap much better than crappy Fender ones or crappy Gibson ones do. But again, you really should look after a guitar. If you buy it, put some strap locks on it, then the chances of you dropping it are minimised. You'd have to be doing something really stupid for it to come off of a set of strap locks. Input jack. So a little bit of a departure from a standard Stratocaster is that the input jack is on the bottom heel here. Some people are going to love this. I personally really like the traditional route here, but of course it does get in the way of your trem arm when you're using it, and of course that isn't going to whatsoever. Of course, you ever watch Nick Johnston play his signature model, and you'll never see him with the bar in anyway. He always uses his fingers behind the bridge, which is kind of a cool little trick. Well, and there we have it. I'm so impressed with this guitar. I'd say not an expensive model, made in Indonesia, but the money's gone into the guitar itself and not into things like a gig bag. Doesn't have a gig bag, sorry guys if you wanted one. Comes in a box. Cheap and cheerful box. Filled with styrofoam. Right. So it just leaves me to do one more thing just to show you how good the trem is. I'm going to do a ridiculous dive bomb with a harmonic or two. Play the dive bomb in with a gain sound and then go back to a clean to give you an idea of how well it stays in tune. Remember, this is not an expensive guitar. Okay, over the clean. Nope, wrong one. There we go. Over to clean. Perfectly in tune after all that abuse. Can't argue with that. So I highly recommend the Nick Johnston signature model. I haven't had the chance to play the US model. It's a little bit pricey, maybe for me. I don't know what they are new, but used, I hear they're about $2.5 grand still, so that's crazy money. I'm not going to be, unfortunately, I'm not going to be buying one of those anytime soon, but I don't see the point. This is a fantastic guitar for the money. Only downside, and I will talk frankly whenever I do a review like this, but the only downside is there's a little bit of overhang on the maple here, where the ebony and maple meet, so the neck itself is a tiny fraction wider than the fingerboard, which could easily have been fixed with a little bit of sandpaper before it was finished, but it's okay, not the end of the world. And the guitar itself is kind of heavy. I haven't weighed the guitar yet. I will weigh it and I'll put a image up somewhere here. So there we have it. Such a nice guitar. If you consider spending 500 and something pounds on a Fender Player Stratocaster, as with my mod videos on my telly, you might need to spend a few £100 on upgraded parts to make it play and feel and sound like a professional guitar. This one has already had that money spent on it, so the tuners, the neck, roasted maple neck, the fingerboard, the ebony, the brass inlays, the pickups, quite high output, single coils, the locking tuners, everything's been done to it, the quality of the tremolo. So for those extra couple of £100, you've got yourself a professional instrument, something which stays in tune, sounds fantastic, really well made, quality choice of timbers. Only downside, a little heavy, and perhaps they could have spent a tiny bit more time on things, tiny details like inside the truss rod rail and at the top there near the nut could have been the thing that would have made this a 10 out of 10 instead of a 9.5 out of 10 for me. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please click like and subscribe. Make sure that you share the video, comment down below, tell me what you thought about the guitar, tell me what you thought about the video. Thanks ever so much for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. Bye for now.